Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today we will be talking about the effect of third-party candidates, especially Robert F. Kennedy Jr., in the outcome of the 2024 presidential race. So what we see in this average, this is from a polling, this is just from a polling Twitter page, but they have their own aggregate. And you can believe their aggregate, or you could not believe their aggregate when it comes to which polls they include. However, it always is important to look at the difference between the head-to-head and versus when you include Robert F. Kennedy Jr., because you could just see which candidate, Donald Trump or Kamala Harris, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. hurts more. So here we see in an average of polls that are just between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, the head-to-head matchup polls, we see that Kamala Harris is ahead by 1.3% in their latest poll. 1.3%, that's a very narrow margin that probably would not produce a win in the Electoral College for a Democrat. However, let's include Robert F. Kennedy Jr. now. This is from the same polling aggregator. Now, when you include Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Kamala Harris's lead grows, does not shrink. It grows to 2.2%. Now, this is also in line with what 538 is saying as well. They, in the three-way matchup, Trump, Harris, and Kennedy, they have Kamala Harris ahead by 2.4. Unfortunately, 538 doesn't do a head-to-head matchup, which is smart that they don't. It doesn't, or they shouldn't, because Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and this is why it's so important to talk about him, it looks like he is going to be on the ballot in all or almost all 50 states. The campaign claims to be on the ballot in all but 5 states, Wyoming, Arizona, Mississippi, Kentucky, and Rhode Island, which would give them access to 506 of the 538 presidential electors. So it looks like Kennedy will get on the ballot nationwide, even if a couple states, say his signatures are invalid. Still, that's almost 50 states that's, virtually being on the ballot in the entire nation. So Robert F. Kennedy Jr. will be on the ballot. I mean, he will be. So we have to talk about his effect. It was one thing back in the beginning of the year when he was polling at 15%, or 20% in some cases. Such a major candidate, it seemed like, but we didn't really know how many ballots he would get on. Back then he was on very few ballots. But now we know that he will have an effect in every single state, across the entire nation, because it looks like he's going to get on the ballot in almost every state. So we've seen something really stunning here. It's, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has seen such a decline in his campaign. This is only starting in July, this average of polls here, this graph of polls. This is only starting in July, when Joe Biden dropped out of the race. I think, that was when Biden dropped out. But you can just see how Kamala Harris's entrance into the race has caused Kennedy to see such a dip in support. In many polls, he was at 15% nationwide in July. You can see that's why, on average, he is at 15% on this graph. 15% is huge. If he's getting 15% in every state, I mean, this would be a whole different race. But then, as people found out Kamala Harris was now a candidate, and her support rose tremendously, eventually over Trump, we saw that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. took such a hit. He declined sharply. And today, he's at below 5%. We see also in 538's average, he is at 4.9%. So is it a lot? No. In the beginning of the year, or especially, I should say, in around November and August, September, that time fall last year in 2023, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. in a New York Times Siena College poll, he was at like 25% in Michigan, Arizona, Wisconsin. I remember those states specifically because they did the swing state polls. He was at 25%, 20 to 25% in each of those states. I mean, that's not just a third-party candidate. That's a major candidate. That is someone who could actually win the presidency with a little momentum come November. So it really is stunning to now see him all the way below 5%. So what I'm saying is 5% is not a lot. It's nothing like it was, in the beginning of the year or late last year when it looked like we could actually have President Robert F. Kennedy Jr. It's nothing like that anymore. For whatever reason, maybe it's because he wasn't included in the debate. He hasn't gotten much media coverage, and definitely not fair. Maybe it's because of all the scandals or, controversies he has been involved with lately. But he has seen a decline in his campaign. He's now at under 5% nationally. But still, I do want to make this point. 5% can make or break who wins the presidency. If he's on the ballot in all 50 states, or 45 of the 50 states even, if he's on the ballot in all of the swing states, then 5% in each of those states matters so much. I mean, just looking at the 2020 margins real quick across these states, Georgia voted for Biden by 0.2%. I mean, if someone wins 1% of the vote, like Joe Jorgensen did, Trump probably would have won the state of Georgia if Joe Jorgensen was not a candidate in the presidential race. She won 1.24% of the vote. I would bet enough of her supporters would have gone to Trump if she wasn't in the race, considering that she was a libertarian, for Trump to win Georgia. You've got Wisconsin, voted for Biden by 0.63%. Arizona voted for Biden by 0.31%. These margins are razor thin, guys. Razor thin. As I said with Georgia, a few of third-party voters could have gone to Trump and he would have won Georgia. That matters so much. Candidates winning 1% of the vote matters so much because just if they weren't in the race, a small break of their supporters going to the other candidate, going to a different candidate, that would have, changed how a state voted. And in this election, considering how close it is, it can, easily produce a winner. It can produce a different outcome of the entire presidential election. But in 2016, and again, that was with, and we're going to look at this again, but in 2016, because it was even more apparent. But that was with Joe Jorgensen winning 1.24% of the vote in Georgia, 1.17% of the vote in Wisconsin, 1.52% of the vote in Arizona. Now imagine a candidate who's at 5%. If these polls do hold true, Kennedy is at 5%, and it does look like he will get 5% because, he fell so much from 15, and I think that was largely due to the fact that nobody wanted a Biden versus Trump rematch, and they just wanted someone different. But after all the controversies around him, all the bad stuff they've heard about him, or maybe because they switched to Kamala Harris, many of his supporters left. However, there does appear to be a 5% that will not break. He rarely polls under 5%. Kennedy appears to have a 5% base of support, maybe a little under that, but he does have this floor of support that isn't leaving his side, hardcore supporters. So, if Joe Jorgensen won 1.24% of the vote in Georgia, and she made such a difference in how a few states voted, imagine what 5% could do. Imagine what 5% for Robert F. Kennedy Jr. would look like across the nation. How would that play out? And, again, let's just look at another example, more notoriously in 2016. In Wisconsin, Jill Stein won 1% of the vote. Trump won by 0.76. I'm not saying, whatever. I won't even go into it because we just did it, and it's even a better example with Joe Jorgensen in 2020. However, again, imagine 5%. 5% for Kennedy in every state. How that would play out, because it is so important. If 1.24% for Jorgensen was so important, and 1% for Jill Stein in 2016 was so important, imagine 5%. And as you can see here clearly, Kamala Harris almost doubles her support when Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is included in the race. So every time Robert F. Kennedy Jr. gets on the ballot in another state, that helps Kamala Harris tremendously. So it's something to always keep in mind, the Kennedy factor. He is helping Kamala Harris win the presidency. He is refusing to drop out, which is interesting. And to be completely honest, I'm not so sure, despite how strong he has been about it, I'm not so sure that he won't, in fact, drop out. There have been lots of rumors that he will, because he has been canceling events. His campaign is completely out of money, and he never holds rallies, he never holds events. It looks like he just is running a social media campaign, and it has not been successful so far, or at least right now, at this point in the election, it has not been successful. So, point being, Kennedy, it looks like, is giving up. So, if he sees, now it looks like he is a bit more right-leaning than left-leaning, especially now. And it looks like that he would favor Donald Trump over Kamala Harris. I would bet all my money that he would. So if he's looking at this polling, saying, the polls are indicating that I directly help Kamala Harris and hurt Donald Trump, should I stay in the race? If I'm at 5% and I'm not going to win, should I stay in the race? Or should I drop out? Maybe not even endorse Trump, but let my supporters, help now Trump win. So, because the polls indicate when he's not in the race, they do break for Trump, more so. So, wow. Definitely an interesting factor here, because, I didn't bring this up, but it was the opposite before. When Biden was in the race, Kennedy being in the race helped Donald Trump. It did. But now with Kamala Harris doing much better than Joe Biden on the presidential election, the roles there have been reversed. So thank you all for watching this video. If you enjoyed, make sure to subscribe down below. We're trying to get to 10,000 subscribers before Election Day. So again, thank you all for watching, and I will see you all next time.